2 Samuel 6, verse 1, and then read through the chapter. This is the New King James Bible. Again, David gathered all the choice men of Israel, 30,000. And David arose and went with all the people who were with him from Baal Judah to bring up from there the ark of God, whose name is called by the name, the Lord of hosts, who dwells between the cherubim. So they set the ark of God on the new cart and brought it out of the house of Abinadab, which was on the hill, and Uzzah and Ahio, the sons of Abinadab, drove the new cart. And they brought it out of the house of Abinadab, which was on the hill, according to the accompanying the ark of God. And Ahio went before the ark. And David and all the house of Israel played music before the Lord on all kinds of instruments of fir wood and harps, on stringed instruments, on tambourines and sistrums, and on cymbals. And when they came to Nachon's threshing floor, Uzzah put out his hand to the ark of God and took hold of it, for the oxen stumbled. Then the anger of the Lord was aroused against Uzzah, and God struck him there for his error, and he died there by the ark of God. Verse 8. And David became angry because of the Lord's outbreak against Uzzah. And he called the name of the place Perez Uzzah to this day, which basically means outburst or outbreak against Uzzah. So he named the place. David was afraid of the Lord that day, and he said, "How can the ark of the Lord come to me?" So David would not move the ark of the Lord with him into the city of David. But David took it aside into the house of Obed-Edom, the Gittite. The ark of the Lord remained in the house of Obed-Edom, the Gittite, 3 months. And the Lord blessed Obed-Edom and all his household. Now it was told King David, saying, "The Lord has blessed the house of Obed-Edom and all that belongs to him, because of the ark of God. So David went and brought up the ark of God from the house of Obed-Edom to the city of David with gladness. And so it was, when those bearing the ark of the Lord had gone 6 paces, six steps, that they sacrificed oxen and fatted sheep. Verse 14. Then David danced before the Lord with all his might, and David was wearing a linen ephod. So David and all the house of Israel brought up the ark of the Lord with shouting and with the sound of the trumpet. And as the ark of the Lord came into the city of David, Michal, Saul's daughter, looked through the window and saw King David leaping and whirling before the Lord, and she despised him in her heart. So they brought the ark of the Lord and set it in its place in the midst of the tabernacle that David had erected for it. Then David offered burnt offerings and peace offerings before the Lord. And when David had finished offering burnt offerings and peace offerings, he blessed the people in the name of the Lord of hosts. And he distributed among all the people, among the whole multitude of Israel, both the women and the men, to every one a loaf of bread, a piece of meat, and a cake of raisins. So all the people departed, every one to his house. Then David returned to bless his household. And Michal, the daughter of Saul, came out to meet David and said, "How glorious was the king of Israel today, uncovering himself today in the eyes of the maids of his servants, as one of the base fellows shamelessly uncovers himself." So David said to Michal, "It was before the Lord who chose me instead of your father, and all the house to appoint, and all of his house to appoint me ruler over the people of the Lord, over Israel. Therefore I will play music before the Lord, and I will be even more undignified than this, and will be humble in my own sight. But as for the maidservants of whom you have spoken, by them I will be held in honor. Therefore Michal, the daughter of Saul, had no children till the day of her death. Now that's 2 Samuel 6. There's a little more detail in 1 Chronicles chapter 15 about this event. So if you'll turn there, 1 Chronicles chapter 15. I'm going to skip many of these verses because there's listings of all the names of the tribe of Levi. But I'll get the main name. So just stay with me as I try to go through this chapter. David built houses for himself in the city of David. And he prepared a place for the ark of God and pitched a tent for it. That's what in 2 Samuel was called the tabernacle. It was a tent, a special place for the ark of the covenant to rest and where they could worship. Then David said, no one may carry the ark of God but the Levites. So he learned his lesson here. For the Lord has chosen them to carry the ark of God and to minister before him forever. And David gathered all Israel together at Jerusalem to bring up the ark of the Lord to its place, which he had prepared for it. And David assembled the children of Aaron and the Levites, the sons of Kohath, sons of Merari, sons of Gershom, sons of Elishaphan, sons of Hebron, the sons of Uziel. And David called, this is verse 11, David called for Zadok and Abiathar the priest, and for the Levites, for Uriel, Asaiah, Joel, Shimei, Eliel, Aminadab. He said to them, you are the heads of the fathers' houses of the Levites. Sanctify yourselves, you and your children, your brethren, that you may bring up the ark of the Lord God of Israel to the place I have prepared for it. For because you did not do it the first time, okay, the Lord our God broke out against us, and that's the death, basically, the chronicle record of the death of Uzzah. Because you did not carry it properly the first time, the Lord our God broke out against us. Okay. Because we did not consult him. So God judged us. We did not consult him about the proper order. So David at this point is taking the blame. Some of the blame for everybody, the whole community. So the priests and the Levites sanctified themselves to bring up the ark of the Lord God of Israel. The children of the Levites bore the ark of God on the shoulders by its poles, as Moses had commanded according to the word of the Lord. They had to carry it properly this time. Then David spoke to the leaders of the Levites to appoint their brethren to be singers, accompanied by instruments of music, stringed instruments, harps, cymbals, by raising the voice, by resounding joy. And so the Levites appointed Heman, the son of Joel. And anyway, there's all of this record of names that are singers and musicians that were celebrating and worshiping God. Loud cymbals were being crashed, and all of this music was taking place. And while they were probably singing like choirs and all of that in order to relocate the ark. There were choir leaders and those that were leading in this celebration. David, this is verse 25, the elders of Israel and the captains over thousands went to bring up the ark of the covenant of the Lord from the house of Obed-Edom with joy. This is really different from, they did it, it seemed like the first time to move the ark, it was half-heartedly. This time, there's none of that. It's with total joy. And so it was when God helped the Levites who bore the ark. You don't see that anywhere in the former story. Here, God is helping the Levites to move the Ark of the Covenant. It's amazing. Yeah, really. When God helped the Levites who bore the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord, that they offered 7 bulls, 7 rams, David clothed with a robe of fine linen, as were all the Levites who bore the ark, the singers. And so there's the linen ephod that he's wearing a robe over, and he took that robe off and danced in the linen ephod. And this was the king dancing. Singers, music, master with the singers. David wore a linen ephod. There it is in verse 27. And thus all Israel brought up the ark of the covenant of the Lord with shouting, with the sound of a horn, with trumpets and with cymbals, making music, stringed instruments and harps. And it happened as the ark of the covenant of the Lord came to the city of David. And here's the Michal incident. That Michal, Saul's daughter, looked through the window and saw King David whirling, playing music. She despised him in her heart. And that's where we get to in this chapter. I'll stop there. Anyway, we covered this story last week. And basically I wanted to look at the story itself, the structure of the story itself. But this week I want us to focus on David's initial response to what happened. Because there's 2 views here. There was God's view about what happened. And then there was King David's view about what happened in the story. And I think they're very important to us. Okay? So we're going to look at that first. David became angry. And of course, the book of James tells us that the wrath of man does not produce the righteousness of God. That's James 1:20. The wrath of man does not produce the righteousness of God. When we get to the end of the message today, we'll rest in the book of James because about this point. Okay? But I want us to look, because what is it that David had to be angry about? It says the anger of the Lord was aroused against Uzzah. Okay? He was the one. The anger of the Lord came against Uzzah, and God struck him there for his error. And I have a marginal note, the word error, irreverence. We talked about that last week. And so the meaning of the word carries with it the idea of not being reverent before God. Okay? And he died there by the ark of God. We could assume they carried him off, to his family or whatever they did and buried him. David became angry at this point. So in verse 7 of 2 Samuel 6, we have God is angry. And in verse 8, we have King David, the anointed king. He's angry. So God's anger, man's anger. So there's a good contrast here. The verse 8 tells us something of why he was angry. David became angry because of the Lord's outbreak against Uzzah. So here his anger is because of the Lord. It reminds me of Adam in the Garden of Eden saying, "That woman you gave me." You see? So he's turned his feeling, and we use the term angst. Can you say angst? His anger toward God in this thing. In Adam did it, and here David was doing it. However long it lasts, I don't know. But anyway, it was somewhat short-lived in the case of David. He had a chance to think through his response, I think. So here, the anger of the Lord was aroused against Uzzah, and God struck him, and then David became angry because of the Lord's outbreak. And his anger was so much that he changed the name of the place. He gave a memorial, Perez Uzzah, the outbreak against Uzzah. This is where God struck him. So I don't know if they put up a monument or whatever, so Uzzah's family could walk by and say, Uncle Uzzah died right here. or so everybody walking by would see. But they changed the name of the place. So the town sign now would read Perez Uzzah, and in Hebrew everybody would know that was the outbreak against Uzzah. Wow. A memorial. I don't want that kind of memorial on my tombstone. Think about it. You want everybody that comes into the graveyard and looks at your tombstone, he died because he was uncontrollably angry. Wow. But there's that in this story too. Then, David would not move the ark of the Lord with him. No, I'm sorry, verse 9. So I'm trying to get to exactly why was David was angry here. So one, he's angry at God. And then he names the place an outburst against Uzzah. So maybe he was angry at Uzzah. I don't know. And now it says, David was afraid of the Lord that day. That's the right response. That's smart. Smart to be afraid of God. After all, he can cast us all into hell. We should be afraid of him. Okay?